I'm Cecilia Utas, and I'm a lead for the Joint Analysis Workspace, a development that is a new initiative. So we are starting to working up how it's going to look like in the future. So just to clarify that. With me, I have Nayid Orozco from DFS, Data Friendly Space, that is our implementing partner, and as well Madigan as that is supporting, that is our communication person. Or I don't know what your official title is, exactly like that. Okay, so let's start. So just a bit about the background. I mean, I know some of you has been in the process. I've heard where we're coming from and where we're going, and others are totally new to what the Joint Analysis Workspace is. I've been a bit jokingly when talking to people here, saying with the new kids on the block, as it's a new initiative that most people are not fully aware of as of yet in that sense. So basically it's coming out of DEEP, the Data Entry and Exploration Platform, which is a tool that has been around, an online platform that is supporting collaborative humanitarian analysis. It's helping to making sense of qualitative and unstructured data, and then promoting transparency and data sharing as well, doing so. As you can also see on this board, is that it is quite a lot of number of organizations that is standing behind DEEP. So I have a governance board that is consisting of quite a few UN agencies, from OCHA to UNDCO, so also on the development side. We have the Red Cross as well, and a number of NGOs that is a part of the governance board to DEEP. So it is a multi-stakeholder forum that is behind it. As administrative host is DRC, which I am working for, and then as well tech lead, as was mentioning, is a data friendly space, and we have our primary funding is from BHA USID. And also just to introduce as well, Joel, that is our project manager for DEEP, is also here. He's just started the work a few weeks back, so it's really nice to see him. So maybe you can just raise up your hand so they can see you over there. Perfect. Thank you. So this is where we're coming from, and we have been working for quite with that system since in the aftermath of the Nepal earthquake. So basically, I think we more or less celebrated 8 years. They a few weeks back. So it has been around for a while. But doing so, we also realized, of course, that we need to take and extending the function of DEEP and ensuring that we are integrating not only quantitative data as well, but also elicit more expert judgments to ensure that we have a process around that. So that what was behind that, we, so to speak, that JAWS, the initiative, was pushed forward. So what then JAWS will be helping us to do is that it will help us to both prepare and access data, and it will also then visualize it on a platform. So basically think about it, you're in a workshop setting, etc. and so on, where it's always difficult to get a hold of all of the information that you need when you want to work with data and have an analysis or doing a joint analysis situation. So here we can visualize the data at the same time, and then we will have a guided analysis process that basically taking us step for step through then analysis steps as needed, but then as well ensuring that we can bring in that expert inputs, both as knowledge and as opinions as well, to elicitate that in a structured manner. And then the platform is then as well supporting an audited process that basically helping us to keeping a transparent, a transparency all through, ensuring that we have an audit trail of all of an analytical task, inputs, and also the participation of who is a part of that joint analysis. So that would actually mean as well, if we could not only looking at the diversity score and quality score for the type of sources that's been part of our analysis, but also looking at who are the experts and what kind of knowledge are they bringing to the table, as well as to give an understanding of the quality of the analysis we have in front of us. So the other part, part of that is, of course, that we want to support or using the strengths of joint analysis, which is then basically we can leverage expertise, diverse expertise, and also engage stakeholders in that. So the key point in the joint analysis that we are trying to mirror into this platform will then be that we will co-create insights. Of course, the platform will also be possible for one person to use for its own needs, but it's really set up to be able to support this facilitated collaborative discussion, where we can encourage then the dialogue happening and ensuring that we get expertise coming in so we can co-create those insights. It's also helping us to integrate the diverse perspectives doing so, and that is, as well as I was mentioning just before, the importance of knowing who is actually then integrate or part of the process. So we also tracking that is to ensure that we do have all of the expertise that is needed as to understand our analysis better. And then, of course, it's also supporting better stakeholder engagement, as not only is it that we are getting a joint or analytical report in our hands, but we also are part of co-creating that as well. That is what the system is supporting. So, so that is what it's trying to mirror. So having said that, as you will see, we have a number of use cases that we will we are basing the system on. We're ensuring that is giving the requirement for the system itself, but the platform will, in a similar fashion to DEEP, be supporting anyone that would be wanting to set up a project. So it will be an open platform for that. We will, in that sense, also be able to have shared repository, shared data that we can utilize. But we can also, of course, bring in the data that is only our own, so to speak, for our own needs, the data, not sharing it further to the community. So this is just a diagram that is showing how we envisage that the JAWS will be working. As you can see in the heart, we have the workspace that is doing exactly those steps I was just talking about, visualizing the data, having the guided flow, and also keeping an audit trail, and also giving us analytical scores that happen to understand that. This is then fed by different inputs, and we have on the qualitative data side, of course, DEEP, that then is supporting with the qualitative data that is structured already, that can then be brought into the workspace. And so it's kind of pre-prepared. But we can also ensure we are getting it from Relief Web or, for example, Kobo on the qualitative data collection. That could be from FTGs, etc., and so on. But it can also bring in any type of ad hoc data sets that we are integrating in any, so to speak, number of formats as well. That would be needed. So that is on the qualitative side, and that will then be most of the time fed in through an API, but of course if it's an ad hoc data set, it could also be a direct upload. Then we have on the quantitative side, and in the humanitarian sector, as you probably know, there's quite a lot of different custodians and data providers in the system, where we for example, the ones here is very much geared towards how to support the GIAF, the Joint Intersectoral Analysis Framework. So basically, we can see that the HPC tools, the population cards, the HDX structured database, that would say the HAPI that HDX is working on right now, humanitarian API, could be feeding in that way. We also have data providers like the MSNA in the sector, and also the DTM, the displacement tracking matrix, that then will be possible to upload into the system. And of course, also if you're in a project is using Kobo for your surveys, you can also bring in quantitative data directly as a primary data into the system as well. And again, any ad hoc data sets. We are very aware that often when we are looking at working with analysis, that we need to get information directly from the field, and then that's often is in, for example, Excel, etc. Will continue to be that for a long time. So this will then be brought into a data lake that is then underpinning the data, the workspace. And you see that it will be integrated there, it can be absorbed, or it can also be via live connections that it will be coming in to the workspace. And then, of course, we are bringing in, as you can see, the structured expert judgment and expert input that will support that. And then after you've gone through the process, then you would, of course, be able to get either out a full report, so that will coming out, you will producing from your analysis process, Or it could be snippets as well, because sometimes you would like to take out your information and then inform other type of products at another point in time. It could be, for example, an online report that you would like to bring out only a part of it. But it could also be that you have an output of on the, for example, on the quantitative output that you would like to then send or connect to another system as well, and back in that sense. So this is kind of what the JAWS, so to speak, functional is doing. Today we are going to start looking into a bit on how this can look like, what type of, how the interface can be scanned. So we're starting doing some mock-ups and wireframes, but as I said, we're quite early in the process already. So this is the project time frame. So we have 2 years since we started in October. And we are right now coming to the point where we have identified the type of use cases that we have behind. We have also set the methodology that is supporting or underpinning JAWS. That is one of the key and the generic analysis methodology. And then we will starting what we call the JAWS Lite methodology. So the first product. So the first year we are going to then establish the workspace itself. While we at the same time in parallel we were starting to ensuring they have the interoperability and for data exchange that is needed to be able to have the data lake that then will be underpinning JAWS by the second year. So just to give a bit of a feeling of where we stand, which then as well looking at as one of the use cases for mentioning the joint intersectoral analysis framework, we are then aiming to be able to roll that out in July 25. So it should be full scale in the 20 HPC countries that will be for the HPC 26 actually, because it's a year before. So that's giving you a feeling of where we are in the process. So I mentioned the use cases that to some extent are then helping us defining the system and where we are going. And we have defined a number of them. And one is a joint intersectoral analytical framework that I mentioned before. And the main purpose of that is to help to understand humanitarian needs, people in need and the severity of for them, and to do better effective crisis response planning, and so on. And we had a session, I think it was last Thursday, where we were then as well looking at how the GF would actually be integrated in to JAWS in the future. We're also then looking more on the risk side with the UNDRR risk analysis, which is basically having a process already that they have been running in support of both the HNOs production, but also on the common country analysis on the development side. So they have very much been focusing on qualitative data in the process, and then they see the possibility now with bringing in quantitative data through the use of JAWS as to be able to do a more comprehensive analysis coming through that. The other thing that is also happening, or that will also be supported by JAWS, is it doing quite reproducible analysis, which means, of course, that you can, to some extent, repeat your same analysis more similar than when you're doing it, but in the way that they've been doing before, mainly through just facilitated discussion without any support. We're also seeing how JAWS can be helpful in the last step of informed warning. Informed warning, for you that are not aware of it, has a risk index and also a severity index, and they're right now working on the informed warning, which will be a more dynamic alert system of risks. And then, of course, that will also coming with that, trying to bring in more expert opinions as to be able to have a more curated analysis coming out of informed warning. And then as well, so this is very much, as you can see, on the intersectoral, that many different organizations coming together. But of course, the platform will also be possible to support for a single organization. And there, for example, we're looking at DRC, that is seeing if they can measure change using JAWS as a platform, basically then understanding the effectiveness of their programming. And facilitate the detection of correlations and clarification of those change pathways. So it's also not only another organization, but it's also, a single organization that is utilizing JAWS, but it's also bringing in another type of use case with going into monitoring and outcome monitoring. There we also have discussion with the ISC outcome monitoring working group about the possibility to see if that also can be integrated in JAWS in the future. So we have 2 use cases on the outcome monitoring side as well. And then as well, sorry, just skipping ahead a bit. We also then looking at the NRC that has the possibility then to do the whole joint analysis or analysis process within NRC, both to mitigate silos, but also taking it all the way to program design. So in that sense and as you can hear on all of those different examples is that they have slightly different needs when it comes to the analytical steps that they're doing. And then as well in the humanitarian system, we're also looking into how a theme or thematic, a sector, in this case the GPC, the Global Protection Cluster, can utilize the system for protection analysis. And then that will then very much looking at protection risks and taking that forward. The other reason why it's an important use case for us is as well that we're looking into see how we can integrate primary data, qualitative data, and linking in COBO Toolbox to support that. So that is again adding to the type of use cases that we're having. This is basically the flow that we have agreed on that we will do. I mean, it's the analytical spectrum, so it hasn't changed that much, but maybe the important part here is that what we would like to see is to ensure that you have different type of user roles that is coming in at different times in this analytical flow. So that means, as you can see, as it's saying, accumulative user roles, and of course, when you're running a process or a project or your workspace in JAWS, you do not need to have all of those different type of user roles. Of course, some of the user roles can be the same person. But you would have a facilitator that is basically the one running the workspace and would, of course, need to be aware of how the platform is run. Then on the collate and prepare, you are bringing in your data manager that then can help you to ensure those connections. Also having in mind that here, as I said before, is that you can collate ad hoc data sets that you have. You can also use already connections that is available, for example, to Relief Web, HDX, HPC tools, etc., and so on, to have access to all of that information. But you will also be able to have access to the data that others has been uploading as well into the data lake. So we are building a repository in that way. This is different from how it is set up in Deep, as there basically, if you're aware of how Deep is working, but there all of the data, so to speak, are linked directly to a project, which means that you need to be a collaborator to the project as to be able to access also the data sources. Here, we would like to ensure that we have, so to speak, access to the light curated data sets, but of course not analysis. Then again, you need to be a part of the workspace to do that. And all of this will underpin with quite clear and strict data governance to ensure that, of course, that any data sets or data that is sensitive or classified would remain that and only accessible by the ones that the facilitator giving access to that data set. And so on. And then we are, of course, going into preparing it, where we're coding, transforming, and standardizing the data, and also visualizing it, so we can start working with it in a describe. And here we're bringing in more of the analyst type of person, and again, could of course be the same person that is doing both data management and analysis work. And then, of course, the longer we're going into the way that we are doing our analysis, then we will bring in experts that is relevant for this topic. This will, as you will see later on, will be accompanied with a user management module that then you as facilitator would be able to ensuring that you know exactly who is coming in at what point in time, etc. Again, the idea is that the platform will be very user-friendly in the sense as an expert. You do not need to see and be involved in the steps before. So as that will be quite complex, and then you're coming in at the stage that they're helping you to understand. And then we're going through, explain, interpret, and also anticipate. And then during the anticipation, there will be tools that it also will be supporting to do more structured expert judgment as to support that. And then finally, of course, we also have a prescription possibilities. You can do your program design here. And here you might even want to bring in more of the decision maker type of people that is coming in and supporting those discussions as to ensure that we do our response planning together in that sense. And then finally is communication, which of course has different type of outputs I was mentioning before. So that's basically kind of the analysis flow that is there. So the key things with JAWS is very much also the enablers, which I just mentioned just before, that it's helping you to plan, organize, and manage your resources. It is also then engaging with experts to build that consensus as we're going forward. And then as well, document and evaluate. So those are very much enablers behind the platform. And I would say that is one part of what, to me, is making this a system that is needed in at least the humanitarian sector, as very often we do have our analysis workshop, but we do not have a possibility to document all of the decisions that is taken. So that will be supporting that. So just to kind of give a bit of a real life example, it could be, for example, that you want to do regular situation briefs in that. So that means that the first thing you need to do is you have to collate and prepare. So you're preparing your body of evidence that you then is bringing in. And that again could be, as I said before, all of those different type of connections to other platforms and data sets. But it could also be that you already have products that is already available, that what it is in this case, that you have a partner that is coming in with products. And then they will be available. And you could then use on the platform, you will prepare this information, ensuring to have to summarize the key findings, you're establishing your master for figures, etc., and so on, but also identifying inconsistencies and also patterns and trends, etc. And again, this would be, in this case, an information manager that is preparing all of this data, then for later on bringing in for a facilitated discussion. And here, of course, you have your partners that then is going in, validating the key findings, reviewing the outlier, etc., deconflict inconsistencies, which is one of the key things to do, and then identify gaps in information as to be able to address that and perform some assumption checks. And then the next step is, of course, then to see, so what does that actually mean for us, developing the likely scenarios, understanding causal pathways, and also clarify the assumption and identify consequences and risks. And then it will also support to prioritize key issues and risks in that. We will also be supported by the prescription part. And then on the communication, it will be set for, pending on the regular briefings, and the type of format does not have to be decided at all from the beginning, because you have the analysis in the platform that's taking forward. In that sense, and then you're taking those decisions. So this was kind of a rundown of the theoretical part of the platform. So I was just thinking, maybe see if there's any questions before we're going into the next part, where we're starting looking into, so how will this actually start looking like? And as I said, it is initial wireframes and mock-ups that we are going to look at, but we would like to see how that speaks to you, and what is how you can see that it might be useful for your work as well, and maybe how it could also be possible to improve certain things already that will make it better suited for you. But just see if there's any questions on anything that was unclear. All good?
All very clear.
Thank you, David. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm moving to.
Perfect. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Najit Orozco. I'm product lead for Deep and now JAWS, working for Data Friendly Space. And yeah, I'm sorry that I will keep kind of turning towards the screen because this laptop has black screen today. This doesn't work, so yeah. And he has very little monitor, so sorry for that, but yeah, bear with me. So as Cecilia mentioned, and probably I just can have like this. Let me just see where we are at. Okay. Sec. There we go. So basically here we have the first draft of the mockups. After we work on the methodology, what we started to see is first, what are the use cases that we have identified, but also those users that will be part of the platform. So first of all, we have different, let's say, profiles. As Cecilia mentioned, we have facilitators, owners, we have analysts, we have also viewers, probably people that just come to check and to see how the analysis was performed and the output, but not interacting in the analytical process. So some just comments before we start with the demo. This is the first draft. It's not, let's say, a workable version. It's just we are using some platforms that are out there as Figma. This one is called Retool, where we can just mimic how a real web platform will look like. Open to feedback. This is just a work in progress, and ideally, we want to be finalized with this version before writing any single line of code. Basically, what we are assuring is that we can have the users or the human in the loop, making sure that we can validate the ideas that we have, and also see how the different use cases will be part of the of JAWS in this case. So this is the home screen. What you have here, and probably just taking one step back, and Cecilia mentioned this, in Deep, if you go to Deep today, you have projects and they are siloed, which means that if you are IFRC and you want to have an overview of all the projects that IFRC has in Deep today, unfortunately, it's not possible. So basically, you need to log to every single project, see who are the users or who's part of that project, which are the data sources that are being uploaded to those specific projects. JAWS, because we are kind of thinking to reuse most of the work that we have done in deep and qualitative work or data, but also see how we can improve that user experience. So in JAWS, we are thinking more on an organizational side of things, where you will land and let's say IFRC, OCHA, the different organizations, and they will have the opportunity, depending on the user that is logging in, if it's the owner, or let's say the admin at the organization, they can have an overview of all the workspace that you have in JAWS. We are changing the term from project in Deep to workspace in JAWS. So you will see, first of all, here, this is the home, and again, open to any feedback, improvements. This is the first kind of version of it. You have the list of your workspace. Here we have two examples, Sudan crisis, Ukraine crisis, and some analysis that has been done for each of those workspaces. So the idea is that anytime you are jumping into JAWS, if you are allowed or let's say invited to a workspace, they will appear automatically depending on the role as well that you will be playing there. If you're a facilitator, we call it a facilitator, the one that can create a workspace and can create analysis as well, invite people out of, basically from the organization, but also out of the organization. And this is kind of the, let's say, the highest role. Then you will have the others, as Cecilia was mentioning, probably experts that you want to have them in certain parts or steps of the analysis, so they will just come to those specific points, and the idea is that JAWS will be shown to them only those steps where they need to input their data. Of course, they can explore the rest, but just to make sure that they are just jumping or landing in the part where they will be entering the information. So in terms of user management, this is very light version at the beginning. The idea is that we can just have a list of users. You will see, the email obfuscated just for GDPR reasons, the sign up date. This is all, again, mock-up data, so it's just made up. You will have the role, as we already mentioned, analysts, viewers, experts, data managers, facilitator in this case. And also you will have the opportunity to see if they are enabled or not, which means that from time to time, and it's something that happens currently in Deep, people are leaving organizations or changing, from one project to another, and we kind of get those requests of disabling users or just putting them as no longer being participants of those projects. You can add a user, and here is something that we are also discussing. And this week we'll have on Thursday a project group meeting where the idea is that we can see what are those minimum requirements that we want to ask to the users that are signing up. Ideally, we will be using some single sign-on solution. We know that humanitarian ID is there as well, but as far as we know, it's kind of probably not being developed more at this stage, but it's something that we are also exploring in using. But the idea is that here we can seamlessly have those users that are part of Deep already to flow into JAWS easy without kind of the need of creating new users. But also ideally, we will be kind of seeing or checking or validating, let's say, the data for those users that are coming. Just validate that the organization is the one that they mentioned, because here they are accessing directly to the workspace of the organization. Of course, with the role that the facilitator will just assign to them. So here we see we have the different roles at the moment. We're asking for name, email so far, and the sign up date is automatically filled out. Then you can add the user, and this is so far what we have for the user management. Then if you go back to home, you have some activity log, which is important for seeing what are the latest changes in the analysis that you are being part of, or in the workspaces as well. And ideally, on a timeline, you will see, okay, there was new data source add to the workspace, or new user come to the workspace as well. The workspace was created. So we have some examples here where we can also detail that information. And here in comments, under comments, you have the opportunity to post comments to your, let's say, workspace group or participants, and create a channel of communication directly in the platform. So these are kind of the basic functionalities of the home screen. If you want to create a new workspace, basically you just decide to create a new workspace. It will appear down here. But let's say that we want to create a new analysis from Sudan crisis. Anytime that you create a new analysis, you will have the opportunity either to create a new analysis or start from a previous one. So basically you are cloning one that is, let's say we already have one from March, we are working on the April one, and then you just can retrieve, because I mean the process probably of bringing data sources or methodology is kind of similar, the framework as well, so we just want to clone it. Let's say that we are starting a new analysis, so you can create a new one, and then you will get redirected to the analysis flow. I know there is a lot of kind of information here, but let me walk you through two, let's say, the most relevant ones. At the top, you will see first the different steps of the flow, as Cecilia was showing. We have the methodology here, step by step. We have design, collate, prepare, describe, explain, interpret, and communicate. All of those are by default. In the analysis step, and let me just jump directly into this part, but I will just go in a sec to the details. You will see a set of checkbox. As also Cecilia was mentioning, probably not all the users that they want to go to all the steps. So basically what you can do is either unselect or check those ones, and automatically, the system will allow you to go through the different screens. So let's say that we go until up to interpret, and if you see at the end, communicate is not changing, because we kind of assume that we are always getting an output, either a report or a data set that we are exporting from the platform, or probably a dashboard that we are creating. So communicate is always persistent for the moment. If you go to the details, you will have the opportunity to detail the objectives. So basically just set the objectives for this analysis. For the scope, you will have a time frame, not needed to have, and this is optional, don't need to have a start and end date, but you can set a start date and probably leave the end date open. That's up to the user. It's not required at the moment. Geographical information, the idea is that you can set the level or let's say the depth of your analysis. So you have the different admin levels here. By default is pre-select Sudan as we are starting a work in Sudan. Then you have down to admin 4. You can select the levels here, and then the drop downs will automatically be enabled to select the specific regions. So just for example here, we can just, and this is just, I prepared this example for Sudan. And then if you select down to admin 2, the idea is that you can also see on the map how or what is the region that you are selecting, and it will be part of your analysis. This also means that in further steps, when you are importing data or bringing data to the platform, it will automatically kind of pre-select those filters just to bring the data that is related to this level or depth of geographical information. Then you can select the sector. We have some of them already, intersectoral. We have 12 sectors that are kind of the ones that are defined. We have also cross-cutting issues or other, just opening up for users to enter a different one if needed. Let's say intersectoral. In this case, you can also select multiple at once. Then you define your analytical basis, which basically means either you go or you start with an analytical framework or analytical questions. In case that you work with analytical framework, the idea is that, as we already saw, we have some use cases predefined. The idea is that we can have those already here. So I don't know, for the IFRC1, PAF, or the deep generic framework, or you can either upload a framework. Of course, we may need to see, at least from deep, if you created what in deep, you can export it as a CSV file, so you can upload it as a CSV, but you will have the opportunity as well to upload it here if necessary. In case you want to create a new analytical framework, the idea is that we can use what we already built in deep, and you will be redirected here in this link to the analytical framework builder right in deep. Okay, then analytical steps, we already covered this part. For the analytical tools, we are kind of exploring the way of integrating these analytical tools and being dependent of each of these analytical steps. So far, we have, you will see here problem tree, for example, concept map, many of them that we are exploring, and also seeing what are probably the tools that are out there that can support us to implement those into the platform. So we have explored some of them. The idea is that probably we are not reinventing the wheel. We want to use what is available out there, hopefully open source, and it will be available right in JAWS. Then for analytical output, this is, let's say, when you are starting just to kind of set the goal of what you want to have as an output of the system or the analysis. It could be a report, curated data set. So if you are feeding back, for example, to HPC tools again, so you can just feedback a data set, you can have an online dashboard or a snippet. Those are kind of more informative, but the idea is that in the communication part, you can define what are the ones that you are actually exporting. And then you can also set the frequency of updates if needed. So weekly, monthly, quarterly, we have different frequencies there. Something that we have also identified in the different interviews with the use cases is that organizations would like to brand or customize JAWS at some extent. So we allow here, and probably this can be with more options, but for the moment, we can just have changing the color, which is basically the header. Probably not a big thing, but it's something that for some organizations, they want to have, let's say, more close to the look and feel of the branding or organizational branding. And you can also change the logo if you want. So here right now is by default the deep, but you can just copy and paste the URL of your logo and it will change to the updated one. So that's kind of the first screen, which is design. Also to mention here at the top, you will always have a persistent icon. The idea is that, that you have like these internal communications where you can have either a chat or leave some comments for this specific step, and also have the log or the audit log that we saw at the beginning. So this is something that appears in all the screens. So, okay, this is the first one. Then we can go to the collate part, but I don't know if there is any questions before moving to the next one. Please, Miguel. Yeah. Can you turn on your, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. For the communication part, have you thought of any other? I was thinking, for example, of Relief Web, but are you, or digital situation report in OCHA, any other, like, I don't know, outputs or platforms or APIs, or just wondering, like, what is communication part about?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure I understand your question there, but basically we have an API, so it can be exported from the platform into where you would like to have that. So for example, if you have an online reporting module, you might not want a full report coming out as a PDF, you might just want a snippet that is coming out. Then you can export just that snippet that then will go to where you want through an API, but it can also be, of course, depending on, and the other type of format that you would like. So if that you mean, so it can in that sense go. But of course as well, if you're doing a full report, then it could then be submitted to Relief Web and so on. At this point in time, we're not thinking about a direct submission, but definitely a possibility. But overall, what you will get in the communication module, and we also have a communication module in reporting module in Deep that is starting to be what we want to do here. Maybe this will be a bit more advanced. But there you also have the possibility to have it online. So you're basically sharing a link, so everyone can use the reporting, access the reporting online there. And you can do it as a dashboard instead of doing it as a report, depending on, again, what your analysis is. Did that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Any other question? Yes, please.
So explain to me about the, you go in as a new user and you ask to be a certain role, right? And then how is that vetted in terms of, anybody who says they're an expert or, and explain that process.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so basically someone will need to set up the workspace. So that means that someone, it could be an organization that has a number of different workspaces, and then that organization is then assigning a facilitator that then is established that. That facilitator in its turn will then invite the others that will be taking part of that process. So that means that, that if I am, for example, is an IMO in Sudan, as we have the Sudan as an example, I might be assigned as a facilitator, but then I would like to make sure that the clusters, IMOs, but also maybe the cluster coordinators would be invited as experts into that workspace. And then, so in that sense, it is an invitation that you will get to be a part of it.
And explain again the difference between an analyst and an expert.
So an analyst will be the one that is actually then working with the data itself. So basically doing the describe and interpretation and put it forward. An expert is coming in to add input, to add opinions, adding their knowledge from. So basically maybe saying, okay, we see that this is happening in the data, but my experience after I've been here and here, this is actually the situation. So then that can to some extent override, but it's going to be logged that it is overriding that. So that would be someone that is a non-analyst, but have a lot of experience and expertise, either country-based or also, I mean, obviously sectoral or thematic.
And
subject matter
the
expert.
experts would need to be invited by the facilitator.
Yeah, so you cannot go into any workspace and just adding your comments. That is not how we're seeing it. So basically, while we are then creating the platform, we are then open it up for others to utilize it. So for example, in the discussion with the GF, is that they will then be globally be setting up a GF for each of the HPC countries, and then that they will assign a facilitator that will most likely be someone from OCHA, and then OCHA will then in their turn then inviting the people that should be, and giving them different roles. So maybe the cluster IMOs should actually be part of preparing, so then they will get a role of data manager. And maybe then they have other people that is coming in just as experts.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, just a quick question. I just realized I should have asked it before we move into wireframes, but it sounds like collaboration is a big part of the JAWS ecosystem, right? And from what we know, the Deep platform has been also, at the heart of collaboration and how the analysts could, communicate and do this stuff together. Am I right in understanding that JAWS is kind of extension of those ideas to a larger scale by adding more, information sources, but in principle, those collaboration principles are still there? And the second thing, it's really cool that you are doing the user discovery phase, and we understand that probably too early in this stage, but I'm just wondering in terms of the key pain points that you think the JAWS software will address. And sorry for asking this a bit at the wireframe stage. I didn't realize it. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Just as you're saying, is that we see this as an extension to Deep. It has been basically it's a need that we have seen that we cannot do the comprehensive analysis all the time that we would like to. So I normally call it a super system. And that doesn't mean that it's so much super better, but it means that it is above it. And that means that it's also bringing in other type of sources, as Deep is not able to handle quantitative data, and neither expert input, so to speak, except that, of course, you can do your analysis there. So yes, no, exactly so. And the idea is as well that if you are in Deep, you will, of course, be able to say, now I would like to go into the Joint Analysis Workspace, and that you will feel like just a continuation from when you are in Deep. But you can also use JAWS without being a Deep user. So you can come from the outside and then logging in, and then you can say that bring in your quantitative data, and then you could optionally choose to use Deep to structure your qualitative data. But you could also instead say, no, I'm going to use NVivo or whatever you have used as well. So in that sense, it's not reliant on Deep, but it's definitely an extension of it. So the pain point, there is none. No, I'm just kidding. No, you mean pain points that we are addressing. So I think that for me, that has been working quite many years in OCHA primarily, but also with UNDP and UNICEF, is always this, that we are always bringing in and inviting people to joint analysis workshops, etc., and so on, trying to make sense of the data. But because we cannot access the data, all of it at the same time, so we're ending up mainly coming out with a set of opinions from that said workshop, rather than it's actually data-driven. And so this is the way of trying to address that particular in that. But at the same time, it will also help to address other issues like this reproducibility. Reproducibility, that was difficult to say today. As you know as well, that you're doing your analysis one time, and then 2 months later or 3 months later, someone else is coming in doing the same analysis and ending up with something completely different. You cannot even use it for trend analysis because the way they're doing it is so different. So that is helping you to do that. And then, of course, as well, you're creating a repository of that same data. So you also have access to that. And here we want to extend what we have in Deep. So we also have the possibility to better use each other's data that we are connecting. So have we connected or, so to speak, uploaded one data set one time, it should be recognized when you're setting up a new project. So if you, for example, is again setting up a new analysis in Sudan, then you should also be aware of what other type of data has been put into the repository by other workspaces. Again, as long as it's not sensitive or classified information, of course. So I think then that's some of the key ones, but also, as you're saying with that slide on the joint analysis, the strengths of doing it together, that we're able to actually get synergies, that we are working on it. And also the different from using in a kind of in a workshop situation, then everyone has to be there at the same place. Now, of course, as it is an online tool, you can either use it in a workshop, and using that as your, so to speak, promoter of it, but you could also then doing it over time. So basically, you will be able to, through the system, sending out messages to all of your analysts and experts and asking them to answer specific question. There will be a survey tool that is integrated as well, that then can help you to do structured expert judgment or that using the Delphi method. So you also can get hold of tacit knowledge, which I think is again something that we're missing out when we're doing those kind of workshops, that it's only few people that is talking and not everyone. So we're getting that, the tacit knowledge. So there's a few examples that what we're going to try to, address through this workspace.
Oh, thank you. That's crystal clear. Thank you.
Okay. Marikan, I think we have
Yes, so we also have an online question from Bernard. Is it possible that the user defines the data that they have and the outputs that they are looking for, and the platform identifies the right tool and methodology, if I understand the function of the tools section on the wireframes correctly?
That I'm not 100% understood the question.
basically
Maybe you
based.
can ask her to.
Yes. So I think the question is is it possible that the user defines the data that they have and the outputs that they are and the outputs that they are looking for, and then the tool will actually identify what is kind of like the right methodology for that data and for the outputs that they're,
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could say it's a really interesting question. So we have the analysis flow that's basically then is promoting a certain way of doing it to some extent. And then, of course, you can select not to follow it rather than the opposite. And then, of course, we have a number of different tools that would be available upon the user request. But yes, it's saying that at this point in time, we have not set as a requirement that the system should be able then to suggest a tool based on the data and output. That's something that I think we would like to play with, and this is exactly what this session is also about, is to get other ideas. It's outside our little box of thinking. So we will take that with us and see if that seems to be, and also run it through a bit with our project group, but also with the different use cases and see how important a feature like that would be.
Thank you. Okay, let's continue the next step. And yeah, also to be clear, next steps, I mean, they are the more, let's say, robust part of the analysis. We have not defined everything yet, so let's see how it's looking like today. But again, as this question that we just had, I think the idea here is that we can explore and see what are those opportunities that we have to expand and to improve what we have already. So then in the collate, basically what you are doing is bringing data to your analysis. In the second phase of JAWS, which means next year, the idea is that we can support JAWS with a data lake integration. But for the moment, at least for JAWS Lite, we know that out there are some APIs available from HTX, humanitarian API. We have HPC tools as well. There is an API there. With DEEP, we can bring some information. Of course, we may need to see how the permissions or everything is the flow with DEEP, if we are importing the entries from the project or the results from the analysis, for example. From Relief Web, we can also bring documents. From Kobo Toolbox, we already in DEEP, we are exploring the integration with primary data into DEEP projects, and ideally we can also bring that information from Sorbis into JAWS, but also let the users set other, for the moment, probably REST API connections. You can also add ad hoc files, so basically you can just go, select and select your file, and then it will be automatically uploaded, as Cecilia mentioned, to the library. Of course, we may need to see if we want to have at least at the beginning some standardization process. So if we ask at least some structure that these files may need to comply with, just to be sure that we are kind of having this mapping between different files, and something like using Excel tags, or we need to explore that in depth. For the moment, just for, let's say, the example here, we just connected to the baseline population, and this is just an example, to the HCX or the HAPI connector, and depending on the country, it will just automatically bring, depending on the admin 1 and admin 0 and admin 1 in this case, it will bring the population information that is available at the moment. So ideally, you can import this data. You can also filter out if needed, or download it to your laptop as well. So this is the collate part. You can explore. The idea is that we can also have here metadata regarding your files. So yeah, size or created at, uploaded at, plus other variables that we need to define as well. Today in Deep, we have, anytime you're adding a new source, we have the authoring organization, publisher, date of publish, kind of very few items, but ideally in JAWS, through the APIs, we can kind of bring more metadata for then either filter out or even guide the user if they want to discard any of these data sets. Then you can go to the prepare part. The idea in the prepare part, and this is just a very simple view of it. And let me just explore here. For example, if you have a PDF or an image, that you can explore and visualize the information. Of course, here they will be playing a key part, the visualization of charts. We are using here as a reference Kaggle, which is a website that hosts different data sets. And at the top, you can have easy metrics that the system automatically kind of get out of the data set that you are exploring. The idea is based on these metrics, we just either compare different files, merge them needed, and also discard. Also, the user will have that opportunity. So we are talking about identifying the variable that the Excel or the CSV file is managing, or a JSON if we are connecting to an API. And then we will see some standard metrics or statistics out of that variable that we are having. In this step as well, the idea is that we can use what we leveraged so far in Deep with NLP and tag the entries or the documents that are appearing. So basically, we are using that analytical framework that we have defined, and we start tagging the information to be used in the next steps. Okay, so that's the prepare one. Let me go to the describe, and I think I go through them, and then we can open for more discussions. In the describe part, the idea is that you can select, and this is where the analysis kind of start in a more rigorous way. You can select the pillar that you will be analyzing. Here are just some examples of it. If you want to do a sectoral analysis or, let's say something regarding operational environment, you can select the pillar that you are interested in, and also the disaggregation level. So you will have the opportunity to disaggregate by location that we already have it defined, affected groups or demographic groups if the information is available. So you will see here that it will change depending on the disaggregation level that you have. At the top, you will have kind of three main parts as we do today in Deep, where you have your summary, information gaps, and assumptions. Again, in Deep today, we have the summary being automatically generated using NLP. We want to do the same in JAWS, but anyway, this is editable for the users just if they want to perform some changes or just update it. Then if you just expand and you go for location disaggregation, then you can start for province A. Very similar to the analysis module today in Deep, we have the set of entries or those pieces of qualitative data that it's relevant to this specific sector and this province, and then the charts as well. We call it charts, but basically it's either charts or images that are being tagged or imported into the library and will be used in the analysis. Then the analysts will have the opportunity to write down their summaries, information gaps, and assumptions, and with the ability as well to generate automatic summaries if needed. So the idea is that we can power or assist the different users with NLP and AI as we are doing right now in Deep. Then you can go to the explain part. As Cecilia was mentioning here, we are exploring different set of tools. This is just a diagram. I mean, it's even an image in this case, just to show what we want to have in this screen is the ability to create these kind of charts or concept maps where you can see, for example, in this case, a problem tree just showing the relationships between the different aspects that have been identified in the previous steps. So you can just assign the or causality in that case of how each of those affect the others. And just ending here in the interpret, basically what you are measuring or having the experts coming as well is just to measure or have kind of a sense of the severity, the different risks that have been identified, and again, you will have the summarization, information gaps, and assumptions. You will have the opportunity to select pillars, subpillars, or by sector. And finally, in the communication tab, and Miguel, thank you for the question. Yeah, we're exploring how we can connect it, but right now we have somewhere between generate report, as Cecilia was mentioning, we built this functionality in deep. So this is a kind of in deep, you already have the opportunity to create dashboards that can be publicly available, including charts, graphs, maps as well now, and all the data that is coming from the analysis. And then you can also either export if you want a data set or kind of get the details from the API use if you want to kind of extract some specific information. So that's a quick overview of how the draft looks like at the moment. We just wanted to show you this kind of process that we are building. Again, we want to have all of you in the loop, basically just to validate those hypotheses or assumptions that we are having, and make sure that we are developing something that everyone will use and value in their organizations. So thank you.
And just to say as well, I mean, obviously those mock-ups are initial in the sense that it's not taking into all of the count of the abilities that we want each screen to do. So we have an analysis document for the methodology, where we have all of those details already, so to speak, worked out. It's going to go through the project group on Thursday, and after that, it's a document that we're also happy to share if someone is more interested to know more in detail. So obviously, this is just giving a bit of an overview of where we are at. So if there's any further questions? Yes, Liv? Yeah. No, thank you very much. I mean, obviously, standard is a big issue, and I would say the question about pain points, I was first thinking the pain points that we will have, and that is one of our pain points, to be able to address that, because of course it's much bigger than just our project with JAWS in a sense, but it does affect us all. So in the first place, I mean, when we are establishing the data lake, then obviously we are hoping that we will build together with a larger community to ensuring that we have a way of establishing those standards, being it a bit more, I would say, at least in my mind, being a bit more agile than that you have to basically follow a specific format. So that means if it is a set, we talked about the potential of a Hexal 2.0, for example, being that we, in that sense, can ensure, particularly on all of those elements of a data set that is relational, that we, in that sense, can ensure that they will be speaking to each other in that sense. Then, of course, it can also go further down and helping us to standardize part of the so to speak, the content itself. While I would say, so it's two levels in that way that we are seeing it. And here as well, I think that Hexal can also help us to, for example, as an example, there is of course other standardizations that we also talked about, but in that sense we can do it and basically building a larger mapping, which will help us to do a loose standardization rather than do a strict standardization. What was I going to say?
Probably about data cleaning.
Yes. Do you want to take that?
Yeah.
I
can
lost
take
my
that
trail
one.
of thought.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, Lith, about data cleaning, yeah, I completely agree. And kind of, yeah, the spectrum of everything that can be done probably out of the platform is big. We don't want to replicate, let's say, what Tableau does or Python. We know that different organizations, different use cases, they all have kind of their own process to deal with data. We have two phases. The first one is Joe's Light. Ideally for Joe's Light, basically we are just saying, okay, this is the format or kind of the way that we expect the files to be uploaded. And that's kind of the easy take that we are having for the first phase. For the second, anytime that we are building a data lake, we can also kind of set those rules or, yeah, kind of how the information of the extract, transform, and load information process will look like. For that, of course, the project group, we may need to think more through what are kind of the possibilities if it's just only joining or merging after you have the Excel tags or kind of these identifiable versions of the files. That's something that we can do. We also want to explore possibilities of using AI to map at some extent. I know CJ is doing that and yeah, HTX. So yeah, of course, we are kind of having these conversations closer to see what are the best way to explore there. But yeah, I mean, we are looking at for a more, let's say, midterm. But yeah, for the moment, I think it's more setting up kind of the templates that we may need to have for the users to be uploaded. And ideally, all that kind of merging and working on the files will be out of JAWS.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was a part of your question that we lost there. No? Okay, good. Thanks.
Hi, Diogo Lemos for ACAPS. I'm anticipatory analyst, and I'm curious precisely on the anticipate part that of your exercise. We do have scenario building exercises where we face some of the problems that you're precisely addressing. So I'm really interested in that. And one of the questions that I have is how are you thinking about dealing with the complexity of obviously the crisis that we are dealing with? Of course, there's a lot of information that would need to be integrated, and all of this data should be integrated through time, but that data also evolves, that knowledge also evolves. And I have first a question regarding the anticipate part. If you are thinking on looking at only the most likely scenario or different scenarios, depending on different evolutions of the data that you have, and also how would that evolve through time? So how would you monitor that? Imagine there is new data being added. Will that be having consequences down the line, changing the scenarios automatically? Or how do you think about doing that, considering all the complexity that this vast wealth of data will bring? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yes, no, we will definitely have the possibility to choose again. A lot of the anticipation would be a kind of a user choice of what type of sets that you or structural analytical techniques that you would like to apply. And we're going to try to have quite a good, so to speak, a smorgasbord that you can, so to speak, select and so on. But so it will be scenario will be built into the main, so to speak, analysis flow. And there we will have alternative scenarios as a possibility. We will also have, like, some of the sets would be key driver generation, etc., and so on, as to be able to establish them, as we already established in the causal pathways, but you might want to go more details in there. So, and then of course, you would be able to, when you're done, finalize your analysis, you will save it as an analysis, and then of course you can go back and continue, so to speak, of working on that again, that to say, and next, in that sense, being able to update it. So the way that we would like to do here is because, of course, when you're setting your scope, when you're setting the time frame you want to bring in information from, so then, of course, it will be possible that it's coming in new data that will be available for. And then we will have a flagging system in JAWS that will tell you where there is changes to your information that you then need to be addressing. At this point in time, again, open for suggestion. I don't think we have been thinking that automatically that the scenario will be updated for you, but it will be highlighted in your scenario where you're base data for certain things has been changing, so you need to address that basically. But definitely it's a possibility to think also automated if it's only the, so to speak, the figures that is changing, etc. Or you maybe have some impact modeling coming in information. So that could be an automated update. But I don't see it being fully automated at this point. But who knows where we are in 2 years' time. Yes, Liv.
A couple more questions about, so I'm thinking about the GIAF in particular, which, if I understand correctly, has essentially a number of sub-processes, right? Like you described a very linear thing, but in the GIAF, you've got a bunch of sub-processes that create an analysis that goes into a new process. It's like the input for another process. How does that look in here, where you're not just marching down that path, but you're kind of marching down using the outputs to start a new path?
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually I had a screen exactly on that from in the presentation we did on first day that was about GIAF. And also I think that analysis is always an iterative process. You will always be needing to go back, readjust your scope. You may be understanding that your crisis or your situation is spilling over to another region, so the geographic scope is changing. It might be that you have new data that actually changing other aspects of that. And similar here as well is that in your analysis, you will come to certain conclusion that you will have to go back. So in that sense is that you always have an iterative analysis that is happening. So in JAWS, that the way we'll be doing is that they're going, so to speak, forward, and then they're bringing in more information, and they continue working on that. Should it be that they would like to, so to speak, freeze the different steps, then they have the possibility to doing exactly using that in the workspace. You can have more than one analysis. So, and that's what we haven't defined yet, if they would like to basically maintain module 1 as they have, that analysis before they're going into module 2. Because in that case, we're doing it in 3 analysis step, with the last one then being part of everything. But if they do not need that, they will just go and adjust, and then they continue, and then they go back and adjust. And of course, it's not only to the scope. You maybe need to, when you go looking at your interpretation of the information, you might need to actually add more information as well, add more data that is coming, either that someone is bringing in of the experts, or that has come, I mean, as you're saying, this analytical process can take a long time, maybe between 2 weeks and 2 months sometimes. And of course, new data can have appeared during that time. So you will always be able to go back and forth. The other thing with GIAF as well, which I think is a good example, is a way that we also want to make sure that you can actually merge different workspaces. I don't think we mentioned it yet. So basically, if for example, using Sudan as our country right now, but in Sudan they set up the GIAF, then of course the second module is that the clusters will be uploading information to that. I'm not sure everyone is aware of the Joint Intersectoral Analytical Framework, but I hope it's okay to get that little kind of patches of information about it. But anyway, so they will then upload that. They could do that anywhere, so the GIAF does not describe or prescribe for them how to do that. But we could also, or for example, the WASH cluster could also decide they want to do their analysis on JAWS, and then they can do that in their workspace for Sudan, for WASH, and then that can be merged into, so basically as an output of that analysis going into the GIAF use case in that sense. So without them having to export it out, etc., and so on. So that's, and I think that is not only, of course, for the GIAF that can be useful, but it's a good example as to make sure we have that kind of cascading approach.
We also have a comment online.
Yeah.
So thanks, from Bernard as well. So thanks for showing the wireframe. I think it's a great step forward, but one suggestion besides crowdsourcing data, we should consider crowdsourcing help too. While important, not everyone is familiar with data analysis. Having a community building component to the web page would be great. People can consult with each other, do a double check if there are any existing analysis before doing a duplicate or stuff like this.
Yeah, I think very good suggestion. So thank you. I didn't read a question into it, so we will definitely, yeah, we will definitely bring that thinking, and part of it is definitely as discussed already. But yeah, thanks. Okay, any last questions? Does it make clear, and any for you that has not heard about it before, do you think it would be kind of a useful contribution?
Hi, Dennis King, with the State Department and one of the founders of ReliefWeb. I mean, I hope you realize how ambitious this project is, and you sort of manage expectations, because basically it's going to come down to trust. The trust of the users in your information. And that is something that in this type of platform, the issues of verification and confidence levels and clearance process of information is going to be very important. So as someone who was involved with creation of ReliefWeb, I wish you the best of luck, and can give you any advice or guidance you need. But again, it's and as has been mentioned, it's gotten even much more complex and uncertain from 1996 when ReliefWeb was created. So there's a lot of challenges, but good luck.
Yeah, no, definitely. We do recognize that. I think it's important to understand when it comes to the trust, it's of course that we are building a platform where people are, or organization is making their own analysis. So in that sense, we do not provide curated data by us as a team. So just having that in mind, that may be a bit of a different situation. On the other hand, we are custodian of many people's data. And as we're also saying is that if someone is uploading a data set, then someone else would be able to access that. So metadata is obviously key. We will also will include confidence level, etc., and so on, and having analytical scores and quality scores that will accompany it, because that's absolutely really important. And also, which is something when you're saying it, that I'm not sure. I mean, we have obviously the publisher, etc., and so on, but we maybe should also have originator of the data, the uploader on the platform. Just to be able to always track to source in case need be. And also, now I know what we forgot to say to you, Leif. So all of the steps that is happening, there is an audit trail. So is there any changes to any data, then that will be logged, every step of it. It also will include, of course, we will be able, the system will log who has uploaded a document in the first place. So, so all of that will be available. So yeah, definitely. But a really good point, Dennis, so I appreciate that. And we might come for you to advise and maybe a moral support. Yes.
Hello, I didn't present myself. Miguel Ocha. I was wondering about the UX because it looks so easy when you did it. It's like a click, 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 done. We have the report, but we have roles. We have like 5, 6 roles. So I can imagine that the interface for each role is going to be different. And for me, there were like 3 screens. I don't remember the steps anymore. I mean, bad memory. But they collect, they identify, they were so all looks a little bit the same. So when I get with these tools, sometimes it's so confusing, and not all the people is so, we are expert on the subject, but many of them are not expert on the framework. They have not defined the framework. The framework is already complicated for some people on the ground. So how you are envisioning that we can make it simple for people that can help a lot in the analysis, but are not like techie savvy?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, absolutely. And our kind of lead here is that we would like to ensure we have a so user-friendly interface as possible. We are aware that the DEEP, being an expert system, as I call it, is a bit of a threshold to actually get in to work with. So the ones that is really deep users, they really swear by it. But we also have quite a few that's coming into the platform, wanting to use it, And then they coming to the question, can you set up an analytical framework? And they say, I don't have an analytical framework. What is that even? So yes, so that's one of the reasons as well. We have analytical framework because that is a logic that is strong. And I also think it's been taking more and more of both the clusters and organization is using that for structuring their analysis. But then as well, you also have the possibility to use analytical questions instead. And it's a typical example to do. Basically, you're building a framework, but you're building it another way. So you're using questions and sub-questions, etc. And what do you have? An analytical framework. But we don't have to always complicate it or feeling that we complicate it so much. And that logic might also work much better if you have a monitoring framework, etc. and so on. So that's part of it. And then as you're saying, exactly that you're saying that different users will have different interfaces coming in at different steps. As an expert, you do not need to understand all of the details as setting up the scope, etc. So that is obviously one key. But the facilitator, and of course that will be the people that we will need to target a lot. So even if it is OCHA that's going to drive the rollout of GIAF, so they need to ensure that the methodology of GIAF is with those that's going to do it. But what we need to ensure is that we are supporting a facilitator training so that they can facilitate the workspace. So it is going to be quite simple if you compare to many other, but it's still going to be quite complex. And also, which it didn't come really through in this presentation now with the wireframe, is that a lot of the screens that we're looking at in the steps, they will also then have different tabs because there is kind of a move between different parts. And for example, we showed in one place where you can go through disaggregating by location or by population group, etc. And that in itself would make that we could do thousands of different analytical outputs there. So then again, you need to understand how can I deal with that. So that's, so it's so much easier absolutely to demo, particularly when there's nothing really behind it as it is right now. But thank you very much, Najid. But yeah, that's how we're going to tackle. And that's why it is important to have those discussions. And of course, we have our project group, that is our stakeholder group, so to speak. But I think that we would like to find a way of maybe broaden that out as to get more the layman's perspective and not only the ones that already know what they're planning to do. Or have their own methodology already, etc. So I think that is important. Okay, I can see it's coffee time. So you are welcome, of course, to go and get a cup of coffee. And if you have any initial or further questions, you're also welcome to just come and speak to us. Yes. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.